Good morning, welcome to a new update. Today we're going to discuss Bitcoin, as Bitcoin has been bouncing up yesterday, and not only Bitcoin has been showing some strength, also the indices in the US started off with a very bad day as we crashed with 4%. However, the crash was recovered quite fast as we came back towards an even green close. And that resulted into Bitcoin bouncing back to 37.5k as well. As we are approaching tomorrow evening with the FED and the FOMC meeting. And until then, we're going to have lots of volatility. And after that, we've got a clear point or clear direction that we're going to go to with the entire market. So that's what we're going to discuss today. But before we're going to continue, make sure to subscribe beneath and like this YouTube update. And also make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where you can find daily content on the markets. And if you have missed it, yesterday we went live to answer all your questions, to discuss all the topics that we have to discuss when it comes to the markets of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So right now we have seen that Bitcoin bounced back from 33k. It closed the CME gap yesterday. It closed the first one from the actual weekend too, and then we crashed to 33, recovered quite fastly, and Bitcoin was the first one to recover, and Nasdaq came after that, and now we can see that Bitcoin bounced to 37.5 and comes back down to 36 again, and I think that volatility will keep up for the coming period, given the fact that the fear is heavily into the markets right now and will push a ton of price action, or at least some decisions to be made in the trading. So that's why all those bounces are going to have its correction taking place, which is the case right now. People see 37 again, and that's the rush for people to start selling their positions, as every bounce is what they want to sell to. However, if we look at the higher time frame indicators, we can actually argue that we might be getting a heavier bounce back up after tomorrow taking place, especially given the fact that also the sentiment on the equity side is just worse than March 2020. So yes, we have had a beautiful bounce back up. What are we going to get out of that? That's what we're going to discuss in the charts. So let's move towards them and discuss what has been happening and what is going to happen. So when we're looking at the price action, the first thing that we want to cover is the Nasdaq, right? The Nasdaq has been making the trend, or has been making this drop down from the trend, which was also taking place in March 2020. People are focused on that, and yes, it lost its trend, and the trend line is usually what you want to look at if you want to start trading. However, you can simply adjust every trend that you want to do, as this is also a new potential trend that we're currently focused on, but also the fact that we have been losing the trend during February 2020 and easily bounced back up is not really something that I'd be looking at. What we have been seeing is that the indicators have been going downhill, the sentiment has been going downhill too, and we got towards a new level to test here. But overall the sentiment was so far down that the odds of having a temporary bounce taking place was making way more sense than actually having a further crash taking place. And yes, we started to nosedive even more yesterday, but that day came back up quite fast, given the fact that people are starting to realize that the downwards move at some point is overextended, and at least the odds or the ROI is more to be found in longs than shorts. So the Nasdaq recovered completely, even closed in a plus 0.5%, while we were down approximately like 4% at some point in time, meaning that if we're looking at the US or European stock markets at this point, this is still the day from yesterday, but I assume that we're going to have a pretty heavy bounce back up on the day today, given the correlation between the markets. When we're looking at a Bitcoin at this stage, the higher time frame are still unchanged, right? We've had a beautiful bounce and no conclusion of an actual bottom taking place here yet, or that we have switched the trend. That's more important, I guess. But there's no point in saying the trend has switched. We might be getting into a phase right now that we're actually finding ourselves a temporary bottom. However, this will most likely require a period of consolidation and will take time before we can actually start reversing. So in that case, the higher time frame resistance zone to crack at 47k is still the same. The level at 33k, the CME gap has closed, and the levels at 30k are still standing, but primarily you want to have a higher low taking place here. And what we also can see is that the RSI is still trending south and most likely to break out relatively soon. So the higher time frames are still this picture. We are still looking at a higher time frame scenario where we are going to have a sideways period for a little while, or at least test 40.7. Then we get the exact same taking place, that people are going to sell at 40.7, and then the price starts dropping down back again because of the fear that is still in the markets. But if we test the lows constantly and we are still bouncing back from them, we are actually looking for a potential rally instead of further drop downs. So in this case, beautiful bounce back up, and I've made this scenario earlier in which we are saying, okay, we've got a beautiful fake out on the downside, right? I will just go to a lower time frame even. We've had this fake out here. This fake out will usually, if it drops back into the range and rejects, which has been taking place, you will be assuming that it tests the other side of the range and most likely nukes through it. And in this case, we've seen that happening, in which we've also had a fake out on the downside, reclaimed the support and started to run back up afterwards. And in this case, we even broke through the resistance point, but we're getting back into that entire structure that we were acting in previously. So we've had a run towards 37.5, rejected here even, and now we're just consolidating. What is the level that you should be watching? Well, I think that the volatility will remain quite high until tomorrow is going to end, and then slowly but surely the trend will be clear where we're going to have with the markets, or at least the volatility short term will be going down. In this case, the level to watch is the level at 35.8. We've been bouncing from it, but if we are not able to crack through 36.5 at this stage, it seems very likely that we're going to have that test. So if we want to have this test taking place inside the range, we have to lose 35.8, as then the downwards momentum is going to give us a test in the blue zone. If, however, we get back above 36.5 and are holding this 35.8 level, that is going to result in further upwards momentum, and then we're going to test 38 and potentially even 39 at this stage. But given the structure, it seems a little bit more likely to have those retests here. But overall, I think you should be looking for longs if we get into this range instead of shorts at this point. But if we have this bounce and reject at 36 like we have been doing here, that could be a short trigger too. So what is most likely going to expect? Well, we had a beautiful bounce. Are we done? No, but we should be looking at a case that the relief rally is happening at this point, or at least the volatility will be relatively high until tomorrow. I hope you have enjoyed this update. I'll be back later today. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Have a wonderful day.